being able to imagine a character that's, I mean, I can't speak for all actors, but I was always drawn to idiosyncratic voices of characters you hadn't seen on screen, or characters you'd see initially and you think, okay, I know this character, and then the character would flip, turn a corner, and surprise you and disarm you or whatever. So.
Welcome everybody to, it's the 10th anniversary of Terrificon. We are having a blast. We have kicked things off in style tonight here in the panel room. If you were with us on the previous panel, I will say you heard from an Emmy-winning actor. I can't think of a better way to close out the final night of Terrificon Q&As with yet another Emmy-winning actor. You know him from films like Saving Private Ryan, Solaris, TV shows like Justified and Lost. Let's hear it for Jeremy Davies. Keep it going. It's a long walk up here. Friend, thank you so much. Thank you. We got the VIP chairs right here. Yes.
We should all just gather around.
Just right around here. Is this like have a sit-in, or just like all get kumbaya and get close together?
Yeah.
I like it. I like where this is headed.
Would you like a water?
I have my water. That one is yours. We've
water?
taken care of. You're
Cheers,
very generous. You're very generous. No.
Sir, do you want a water? Okay.
You are the most generous celebrity I've ever met in my entire. No one's ever offered water before.
Well, that's debatable, but thank you.
You are known for some fantastic TV roles over the years. I have to ask you though, is this true or false? Did I read this correctly? You were raised without a television, or you were raised without watching television?
That is true. Yeah.
Okay. What was behind that with this? I mean, did your parents just sort of like not want that influence on you, or did you run down the street to the neighbor's house and sneak a few shows in every now and again?
Yeah, watch TV contraband. Yeah, my father, the way that he explained it, and I'm actually really grateful for it now, like multi-dimensionally grateful.
Sorry, I just want to make sure we hear you. That's all right.
The way what he always used to say is it's tranquilizing with triviality, and he was a writer, and we just read all the time. He encouraged reading and writing, and
okay,
and actually really grateful. But of course, then years later, I ended up where.
that makes sense with the future question I have about Lost, but we'll get to that one anyway. So take us back. You were born in Traverse City, Michigan, is that correct?
Possibly.
Okay.
I don't get too much into personal details, but
we'll see what we can dig into somewhere in there.
Somewhere in North America.
This question may or may not go over well. Then let's see where it goes. True or false? Okay, I want to see. You grew up throughout. Is this possible? Like Vermont, Seattle, Oregon, Kansas, Michigan, New Orleans, Latin America, Canada, Denmark, Sweden, and the Kingdom of California. I plead ignorance. I'm not sure what the Kingdom of California is. Is any of that true, or did I just find something?
Could possibly be. I wouldn't trust me, though. I wouldn't. I've also grown up in Connecticut, too, because I'm still growing up.
Hold on, let me add that one to the list here.
I feel like I haven't grown up quite yet officially. I apologize. You guys were maybe expecting that.
Okay, can you walk us through any of that? Like, how does that? I moved a couple of places, but it was just like within Pennsylvania. That was about it. But
where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a place called Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Just Johnstown.
Johnstown, Pennsylvania, known for the Johnstown flood and almost nothing else. So apologies to anybody from Johnstown, but it was like that's really all we. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I had a really peripatetic youth because. Everyone thinks I'm an army brat, possibly, but there was just a lot of fragmenting in my family in a number of different ways. People splitting up and loved ones dying tragically young, etc. And so my brother and I got shipped around quite a bit.
Okay. I mean, especially with the roles that you're taking on now, I think, because your career is so varied. I mean, we'll talk about a bunch of these things, but did that sort of upbringing help out later in acting? Because with acting, you're just inhabiting role, like that person's life, whoever that person's life is for that time that you're filming. Were you able to pick up anything in those travels, or was it all just such a blur at that point?
I think so. I think it's different for everybody, every individual, of course. We all have different capacities to navigate any social situation or familial situation. And for me, I think it ultimately helped going through the experience of being thrown into completely different countercultures, cities to small towns, and you have to adapt if you don't want to get bullied for your entire life. And I think I probably learned to adapt sociologically. That certainly doesn't hurt as an actor, but I think there've been great actors who grew up in one place.
Right.
Great actors.
When you say that adapt, though, like what did that mean to you in your life at that point? Like, what were some of the things that you had to? Because I just even moving when we moved from Pennsylvania to Tennessee, I think that was such a culture shock for us. It was such a different environment. But as a kid, I mean, growing up, like, what were some of those things that you had to adapt to? Was it things in school, or just like, how do I make new friends this quick, and then all of a sudden you lose them again? They're on to another place.
Yeah, I mean, quite literally, sociologically speaking, you go to a different place, and it's a different culture, even if it's just nuanced, comparing small towns. But it's adapting to the local dialect and traditions and POV and the politics and the social constructs, and it's just natural. Of course, we all want to fit in as a kid. And it became I think probably to an extent somewhat of a skill that definitely helped, because obviously acting is all about being able to imagine a character I can't speak for all actors, but I was always drawn to idiosyncratic voices of characters you hadn't seen on screen, or characters you'd see initially and you think, okay, I know this character, and then the character would flip, turn a corner, and surprise you and disarm you or whatever. So
you mentioned your dad wanted you to do more reading than TV watching. Do you remember what you were grooving on growing up as a kid? What were some of the books that you were reading, and have you had a chance to work on any of those? Like, as an adaptation later in life, or would you love to? Maybe I know there's a bunch of different questions in there, but pick whichever.
You guys want to take
I know
that?
I tend to talk. I just interviewed John Wesley Shipp, so I'm like in really speed mode right now. So let's start with the first. What were you grooving on as a kid, as far as like literature?
Well, I don't want to put our friends to sleep here. They've come out and stayed up so late already, but I did read a lot, and I'm really grateful for that. I also started writing when I was younger too.
Okay.
I started writing when I was 6 or 7. And that's been my ultimate dream, actually, is to get a chance to transition from actor to writer-director. So
okay.
I've
what have you written? Can you tell? I mean, sort of like in this genre.
Well,
could you do a dramatic reading for us as we sit here? Yes, please, and thank you. Yes, those will fill up the rest of the time here. Is there a certain genre that appeals to you, or something like?
Well, here's the impetus. I just, from day one in this business, I never, I think I had a really healthy, realistic view of how, the business I'm lucky to be in, have a certain amount of success in, is beloved, but it's also can be quite brutally competitive and cynical. From the jump, I vowed to hijack my acting career, to turn it into film school, every acting experience that I had. And while I was doing this, so I apprenticed myself to many, many gifted filmmakers that I was lucky to work with or meet. And I kept writing, and vowed to earn, collect my 10,000 Malcolm Gladwellian hours, and my PhD equivalent after all that time to hopefully transition, you know. And it's actually, I consider it my job as an actor to really know as much about the storytelling process and the filmmaking process as possible.
Along those
I mean?
lines, if you say you want to do more directing, what would director Jeremy say? Like, how would director Jeremy direct actor Jeremy? Or is that too meta? I'm sorry, I do put people on the couch here for some part of the interview. So
no, you're doing great.
We'll dig deep here, but
maybe,
yeah.
Can you paraphrase that?
How would you, if you were directing yourself, if you were starring in a production that you were directing, what would that director think of you as the actor?
What would I think of me?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, it's just like we're getting polymorphously existential right now.
Have you ever directed
This
yourself
is
in
the part of
any?
the program when you buckle up.
Have you ever directed yourself?
Have I directed? Well, you know, that reminds me, I met a veteran actor who I really admire. I was working with them, and one of the things they advised, you know, I was always asking for advice, is he said you should definitely be prepared to self-direct. And he said he thought actors self-directed more often than not, because, yeah, I've always been really surprised how many filmmakers, directors, really revered and accomplished in many respects, but still didn't really know how to most effectively, in my humble opinion, talk to actors, because it's not something you can kind of slip into without really understanding what acting is.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example if you guys want. You can tell a director hasn't tried to act themselves if they give you an adjective. Like they say, you do the take and they say, okay, do it again. This time I want you to be more angry. It's not helpful at all to an actor. Actors need, and I'm being reductive, but actors need verbs. You know, you're in motion in the scene. You want something. If the scene is well written, the function of it is two characters wanting something and trying to figure out how to get it. So if he or she gives you a verb, you know, this time try to get what you want by being more charming. You try that, and immediately while you're playing that verb, it makes you really focus on the other actor, because you really have to see if you're actually having any success convincing them, or if you're not. And if you're not, then you got to change your verb. Maybe don't try to be so charming, try to be intimidating, etc. So that's a very common one that I hear a lot, is to be more angry. Being more angry, it's two-dimensional. It forces you to be self-aware, and it's just one color. It's like there's no life in it. You know what I mean? The action of the verb.
As you were telling me
sense?
that, I can't help but think of like actors talking about being directed by George Lucas, and it was always like his direction is always faster and more intense. And that's it. That's like all he gives them.
I didn't hear that.
What would you do with that if you're worked on a Spielberg production? What if you worked on a George Lucas production and he's like, you know, Jeremy, I need you to faster and more intense?
I would just be profoundly humbled. And if anything he said, any way he wanted to say it to me, I revere him so much.
That's a fair answer.
I would take it and run.
That's a fair answer, yeah. He tends to make some pretty big films.
Yeah. No, he's a pretty wildly brilliant gent. But I take your point. Everyone has their own style. No judgment. I know what works best.
Yeah. No, it's interesting from the director's perspective, like how you would look at that. And so that would be, you know, again, thinking how the actor would act, thinking what does the actor need in this moment, for me to get this, for me to elicit this performance, and that makes a lot of sense. I'm guessing you probably picked that up from Spielberg at some point if you hadn't had it in your DNA already. Let's talk a little bit about Saving Private Ryan. How did
You
that...
guys doing okay? Anybody change their mind about the water?
I think we're good. Oh, by the way, if you have any audience
water?
questions...
Can you hand that back to the camera? We got to take her. Thank you very much. Hydrate, my friend, hydrate.
That's been the theme this weekend
This'll
for
be
everybody,
over
is to
soon.
hydrate. They're doing pull-ups out there, for goodness sake. Everybody, there's like a pull-up bar out there. I've never seen that here at Terrificon before. If you have any audience questions, there's a microphone over here too, so feel free to jump on that. I could go all night, but if we want to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
So how did Saving... Yeah, well, let's let me finish my... I didn't see him pop over there. Good eye. See, that's the director in you. That's the director. You just took my eye to where the action was going. Thank you for doing that.
Chaos is good.
Let's
Chaos
talk
is
about
good.
Saving Private
Controlled
Ryan.
chaos.
We'll get into that. How did that role come into your life? How did that project come into your life?
Try to give you the 30-second version.
No, we got all time. We got plenty of time. Take your time.
I don't want to. These guys got to get to dinner, I'm sure. Thank
We
you
can
for
have
your
it brought in.
patience. Gosh, how far back do I need to go? I had just been lucky enough to break into the business. I started out in the very subterranean independent film world. You know, the first leading role I had in a film, the budget was $75,000 before post-production, and we shot 17-hour days for 6 days a week, and everybody had a nervous breakdown. That was a film called Spanking the Monkey, which was David O. Russell's first film that he wrote and directed, and it was really challenging. It shouldn't have worked, first of all, because I was playing the lead, but also because there was this really challenging Oedipal complex at the heart of the story, and it's also supposed to be a dark comedy. And for some reason, despite the fact that I starred in it, it really worked, and we won the Sundance Film Festival, which was a great, great honor, and that kind of kicked things off for me. So to get around to finally get a little closer to your question, my friend, I went about the business after that in a really deeply passionate, I think, admirably passionate way, but also very naive, because I found another really dark, independent story, a script that I really wanted to do, that instead of like trying to figure out the way the business works, is it's kind of better to keep your momentum going, do one for yourself, do one for the studio. Sometimes they say it like that, but I put all my eggs in this very, very independent film that at the end of the day 13 people saw, and one of them was my friend Sean Penn, who eventually became my friend and mentor, and the other was Steven Spielberg.
Wow.
And he was extraordinarily taken by my performance. I'll try not to be too violently self-deprecating, but against his better judgment, he really liked my performance in that. And it was, again, another vividly idiosyncratic character. The most idiosyncratic I've been allowed to do. You know, I set in the 1960s, very Tennessee Williams-esque, dark. I played this character who lived in a treehouse, was the son of the owner of this ranch, my mother, and I didn't speak, and you know, Vince Vaughn is a stranger. He comes along and he kind of pulls me out of my shell. Anyway, it was a very contained character, very internal, and on the spectrum in a really interesting sense, although back then we didn't really call it that.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, wonderfully against his better judgment, he saw my performance in that, and then that's how he ended up becoming aware of me.
Yeah, I mean, such an unbelievable flick at that time. What research did you do for the role in Saving Private Ryan for Upham?
Well, you know, one of the most terrifying things about being being granted that honor of belonging to that family is like the two greatest pressures were I really was terrified of letting Steven down, first of all, because I revered him so much. He was such a God-sized filmmaker and storyteller to me. But also, I felt a really profound responsibility, of course, to the veterans. So I studied, obviously World War II, but war in general, and wanted to really better understand the psyche of what it was really like. That I think is one of the more easily genius things that Steven tapped into in that film, was recognizing that all the films on World War II we'd seen up to that point showed this flipped ratio of really heroic men. 95% were really pretty heroic, and just a few, the others were killed or not quite as heroic. And this really showed the true brutality of war. And in fact, halfway through the film, Steven came to me, and he was very incredibly generous in respect to, he'd been watching the film, the dailies, and he said, I'm grateful for what you're doing. I think you're doing well. And I decided I wanted to tell the film more from your point of view, because my character, Upham, wasn't supposed to be in combat, wasn't prepared, shouldn't have been there. And he said, the audience is going to relate to you more. Wow. Right? And also because Tom Hanks was supposed to be more of an enigma. So actually, I'm jumping forward. I apologize from your question, but everything that I do in the film, in the third act, was not in the script. And that was all from Steven. Wow. Realizing, and that was one of the great lessons he taught me. I actually, to my earlier point about wanting to transition from actor, writer, director, is I let Steven know, I had the audacity to let him know when we started working that I wanted that was a dream of mine. And so he would often just come over and give me a little quick filmmaking lesson. And one of the greatest lessons he taught me was by showing me, but also telling me that, I remember asking him, what's the mistakes that young filmmakers make the most? And he said, one of the biggest mistakes is not knowing what you're getting while you're getting it. And you rewrite the film 3 times in script form, and while you're shooting it, and while you're editing it. So while we were shooting it, he was watching everything, and he really knew what his strengths and weaknesses were, and he diminished all the weaknesses, and he amplified the strengths, and he turned that whole third act into Upham representing the audience. And
that part I did not know. That's unbelievable. I'm watching that again now in a whole new way, because I recently watched the clips again, and then you saying that, I'm like, okay, now when you just said that, I'm viewing them in a completely different way now. So wow.
And one quick note on that, my friend, if I may, another thing is well, go ahead. Go ahead with your next question.
No, that's it. Listen, this is, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I didn't know. I was saying he changed everything in the third act, but I didn't even know until the day.
Wow.
But 2 things, like that scene on the stairs, where
yes.
my fellow soldiers, I didn't know I was going to do that until so I couldn't rehearse, couldn't prepare. And also, I was just constantly in awe. It sounds hyperbolic, but I was so constantly in awe of Steven, because even just realizing that and shape-shifting to accommodate that and amplify that strength, but also he created that scene like overnight, and to me it's one of the most allegorically moving scenes ever in cinema, because of course my character on the stairs, unable to take action, even when the German came down the stairs, unable to take action when my Jewish comrade was upstairs. It parallels the truth that the Allies had the information about the camps and didn't act on it right away. And I just thought, that's a filmmaker, that's a storyteller.
I'm glad you said that, because that was one of my questions, because I was wondering how much of that was an allegory that came into that, because you watch it, you're just blown away by the scene on its own, and then you realize how much this speaks to what was happening at the time, and it's just, it's filmmaking, I think, on another level. It's storytelling on another level, and I think it works because of what Steven did, but now when you said that, and you're just going into it cold, and it's like, whoa, and then you pull that off, it makes that scene so much more powerful. So thank you for telling that story. Yeah, we have an audience question right over here. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you for your patience.
Your name and where you're from?
My name is Xavier. I'm from Chicago, Illinois.
Xavier?
Yes, Xavier.
Do you want a water, Xavier?
I'm okay. I think they gave it to the camera person over there.
Or a seat?
Working hard. I'm okay.
You actually sit when you ask a question.
I'm okay. I'll stand up a bit. But no, I'm super interested in the fact that you mentioned directing. And I remember once being in film school, and an instructor kind of told me that it's the actor's job to essentially play the music, and as a director, it's his job to essentially play the orchestra, right? And I guess the way that I kind of relate that to what you mentioned about how you want to direct and stuff like that. When you're playing a character like Daniel Faraday over the course of multiple seasons, years, right? Different episodes, the thing that clicked to me is the fact that you have different directors for those episodes as well. Yeah. And how does that affect the lifeblood of the character throughout the arc of that? I mean, does that, not only the script that you have and the character's arc and your performance, but then how the director wants to essentially carry that through the story with everything else going on?
Xavier, excellent question, my friend. I'll try to give you an abridged version of it, but it's a great point you raised. Yes, it cannot help but affect the arc of your performance or any of the characters, the arc of the characters over the course of the story or the series, or whatever, when you have a different director coming in every week. And I mean, I think you gotta, of course, be a really vividly gifted filmmaker or director just to come in and be the, like, you know, the everyone else knows everyone and try to. So yeah, you got to relearn. Ideally, you learn if they're open to it, he or she adapting, trying to figure out. Like, I think the best directors very carefully go around to all, speak to all of the departments, of course, but with respect to the actors, every actor has their own psyche, has their own ability to talk about what their needs are or not. So as a good director has to shape-shift the way they talk to everyone. They have to shape-shift the way that they ask for something. So if they're not able to adapt, sometimes you have someone who doesn't give you a lot, and you, like, not unlike the actor that I quoted before, who was a veteran. You kind of have to, you have to be able to direct yourself when you're put in that position. So it is tough at times, but and I think the actors that don't handle it as well are sometimes the ones who really just try to do everything that every single director says to them, even because they just they don't want to think about challenging someone. And it's obviously very tough if a director comes over, they're very gifted, they're acclaimed, they're very accomplished, but they come over and they give you an adjective. No judgment, There's just this old school mentality, has been for quite a while, that directors don't try acting and get to the point where they really understand. Like, they might try, they learn how the camera works. They don't do it. They're just not comfortable talking about emotion and motivation and verbs. So they're some very, very gifted, very accomplished directors. Again, no judgment, who will do something like that that's reductive, that doesn't really help you. Like, say, be angrier, and it does shift your ability to kind of accomplish what you're saying on screen, like developing your character in a compelling way. Does that answer your question, Xavier?
Absolutely. I think you're an effective communicator. It reflects in your acting, and I look forward to seeing it reflect in your directing. So
Get
thank
this
you.
man 2 waters.
I just want to know who told you to be angrier. That's what, I wish we could dig into that, pull at that scab a little bit. He mentioned Faraday. Is that Faraday's tie that you have on?
Yeah.
It is?
As a matter of fact, yeah.
That's the one you took?
It was my tie, actually. I brought it. Yeah.
That was your tie in the show?
Yeah, and I suggested it to them.
Okay. So you didn't really take it. I've read that that was one thing you kept, but that was your tie.
I kept it as my tie, but I suggested.
So they took your tie.
And they gave me, they got doubles, you have to, like doubles, triples in case.
I love that I'm literally this close to Faraday's tie. That's pretty cool. Listen, we nerds, we just love a lot of different things. No judgment. But I asked Harry Thomas this, is there, in one of the earlier panels, you've done like everything. You've done, so many different genres. We could sit here all night and talk about everything you've done. But is there a project that you've worked on that you think maybe didn't get the recognition that it deserved at the time that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, there's one I did recently, fairly recently, that I'm really proud of. I did it with my old dear friend Guy Pearce, who I've made 2 films with now. You guys know Guy, of course. I did a film in Prague with him quite a while ago called Ravenous. You guys ever heard of that? It's got a cult following now, but that's where I met Guy. And I did a second film with him a couple years ago. It's called The Infernal Machine. And it's mainly Guy. It's hard to talk about without giving things away, but talk about how it was the most I've been allowed to shapeshift and transform as an actor, playing a character. And if anyone's halfway interested in seeing it, I won't say what it is to give away, but it allowed me to really derail any recognizable speech pattern, for example, and my physicality was altered in a way that I've never ever approached. Through CGI, through makeup, through just
physical, something you did, did you go De Niro?
Elephant Man.
Did you go full De Niro and just or Christian Bale? Did you pull a Christian Bale? Pretty close?
It was like the Elephant Man kind of transformation, like a stage Elephant Man kind of transformation.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I'm not saying the character was like Elephant Man,
Right.
just in terms of the physicality. So, yeah, it wasn't CGI. But Guy is really magnificent in it, and it's really well written and directed, and I felt honored to be a part of it.
Okay.
But
I've got to ask you about this.
It's streaming on Paramount Plus right now, and Amazon, I think.
Oh, it is. It is on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a Paramount.
Well, we'll go look that up now. I got to ask you. You're not really a social media guy. You're kind of a social media guy, but not really a social media guy. You did.
I'm not on
You did
social
write. Is
media
this
at
you?
all.
Did you actually do this? You wrote a 32-page social media post.
No.
That's not true at all. Not at all.
I'm not on social media at all.
JeremyDavies.com. That what we see on there. That's not you. That whole 32 pages of. Okay. I just thought it was interesting. I looked it up, and
As far as I know, my website's non-functional, but I'm not into social media.
We're here to dispel rumors now, so that's what I want to find out if that was something legit or not. You mentioned what you took from Spielberg on filming Saving Private. I'm sure so many life lessons that you learned from her. For Tom Hanks, you and the crew, were you able to take anything from him, or was that? Because I know that was sort of a, when he's on the set, I'm guessing he's almost like a de facto mentor or something like that. But were you able to take anything from him throughout your career that you've been able to use?
Well, certainly, he's another extraordinary example. Just watching someone who's that in depth as an artist and that capable, and he was actually like his character, a really natural, true leader. So we all looked up to him, and treated him like he was the general, the captain, and yeah, he's just so easily, effortlessly good at what he does. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that we all, just from his example alone of how he carried himself on set and how he treated the crew and the other cast members and how he worked with Steven, yeah, he was really influential.
I'm guessing with a movie that intense, with everything that's going on, at the same time, you kind of probably lose that, oh, it's Tom Hanks, pretty quickly once you get in a set, and then all of a sudden there's just like, shells dropping and explosions going on, and then all of a sudden you guys are all the same at that point, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of actors and who have played, let's say, unsavory characters over the years, over the course of their career, or less than likable characters. I got to ask you, they always say you got to try to find the humanity of the character that you're playing. What's their, because nobody thinks that they're a bad guy or a villain or something like that. How does one do that with Charles Manson?
Well, it's always wise, I think, to. My favorite villains are the ones you just, like they say, you love to hate.
Yeah.
You can see the brilliance of the actor underneath, presenting this character in a way that it's almost like guilty pleasure, and you just see this magnificent creation, of something that's living and breathing. It's not two-dimensional. Manson was, I transcribed every interview that he ever did, and I, typed it all up, and I divided, he did like 30, 40 hours of interviews, and I categorized everything. I broke things down into different categories. The way he talked about this, the way he talked about this, his favorite sayings, his jokes, whatever. That really helped me build more of a 4- and 5-dimensional character, because when you feel the way someone is capable or incapable of expressing themselves, I just, you as an actor you find things that you resonate with, like his ability to communicate. It's undeniable he was a really remarkable communicator. He was really, when you convince people to do the things that he convinced them to do, like it could have been quite an asset in his life. He was actually a pretty good musician. He had a chance to kind of, get in the door. There are a lot of things, and if you come from a position where you understand like where he came from and the abuse that he went through and how he developed these skills, but then it ended up, going in the direction that it did. I think it helps ground. I think it's really dangerous when actors read a script and think about a character and you see them on screen. You can tell immediately that they're judging the character, that they themselves, like that there's a separation. Oh, wow. That they're like their psyche is fighting, it's split. Like it's almost like it's human nature, I think, for many of us to kind of want to put the energy out to others to communicate that this is how I feel about this person or this group of people. It's almost like projecting that. When people are like quick to diminish another person, to badmouth or whatever, I think it's the equivalent on screen when you see an actor who's like, oh, I hate this guy, I gotta play him, but I'll play him as this person that I can't stand, that I don't like, and they end up coming across repellent, But you have to honor your audience by bringing them into the story, bringing them in and making them feel this 4-dimensional character, and identifying with them. The key is you want to be able to empathize with the character, but not necessarily sympathize. Like you wouldn't do some of the things you do, but you can empathize. You're grounded, and everybody understands emotion. Everybody understands the same experiences, and I think it's much more powerful when you see someone like Manson and you go, well, he's not that different than my crazy uncle or my brother. but he did that, and it's almost more powerful when you see him more as a monster, because he doesn't seem like a monster.
Right.
He seems quite charming.
Yeah, especially when he's like writing Beach Boy songs and doing things like nobody thought, and then all of a sudden
but then
the
it
switch
goes
flips.
that way. Yeah, that to me is much more interesting, and I think it's much more interesting for audiences. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the way you phrased it too is perfect. We have another audience question over here?
Yeah.
Hey, my name's Mark.
We met earlier.
We met earlier. I haven't talked into a microphone in a long time, sorry. I could ask you a lot of questions. Thanks so much for doing this. I guess my question is, I read a rumor that when you made Rescue Dawn, that you had lost so much weight that Herzog demanded that you no longer lose weight and that you stop losing weight. And you also spoke about these long 17-hour days when you started shooting Spanking the Monkey. How much do you feel like you really have to like suffer for your art? And do you ever feel like you have a harder time when you work on bigger productions and you have like the large catering and everything's so nice and fluffy? Do you like revel in the grime of roles, or does it not matter if you have like a star-studded production? Does it not really? Do you have a harder time getting into the character when everything's so nice and comfortable, I guess is my question.
Oh, great question. My old friend. We used to go to different high schools together. So we met like an hour earlier. Good to see you again. Great question. I hadn't heard part of that about my great dear friend and mentor Herzog. I don't remember him remember him telling me that I needed to stop. The way it happened is, I told him I wanted to. For some reason, he said, "No, it's okay. You don't have to. You don't have to go that far."
I'm looking for weight loss tips now.
Pardon me?
I said I'm looking for weight loss tips from Werner Herzog.
From Werner Herzog.
Herzog weight loss tips.
Didn't think this was going to go there.
I love it.
Just took a shift.
Yeah, he said, it was. He's visionary. He's one of the most wonderfully lateral thinkers, so you never know what he's going to say or think. And what I said to him when he, wonderfully against his better judgment, asked me to come aboard the film, as I said, to the earlier question about the responsibility that I felt making Saving Private Ryan, representing the veterans honorably, I felt the same thing in this, because I was playing a prisoner of war, Vietnam War, and I was a POW in a camp, and I wasn't eating, so I felt the best way to honor that, one of the things I could do that would be significant, is to lose that weight, and to see, it brings, a really strong sense of verisimilitude when you see somebody who actually looks like they're in a POW camp and doesn't look like they're well fed and just stepped out of a trailer in the air conditioning. So I felt it was entirely appropriate, and I think Werner was quite surprised how much weight I'd lost, but he certainly didn't make a big thing out of it. I think he was surprised, and he had, for whatever reason, just said he didn't think it was necessary, and maybe he was right. But so for me, I felt again it was honoring the memory of these veterans by trying to feel and portray their experience as much as possible. So to the rest of your question, I think when I was younger, like it's easier for younger actors to really romanticize the idea of really getting deep into a role, and I respect that. It's kind of, as long as you're not hurting someone else or being unkind or ungracious and disrespectful to someone like on the set when you're creating a character, I think whatever it takes to get you in that state. One note I will add is, and I say this as a caution to young actors, like there's this feeling that early on that to play like a tortured character, like a James Dean, that you need to drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes and beat yourself up, and I think that's completely misguided and totally just doesn't serve you. You got to be like an athlete to be a great actor, a really effective actor. You got to, just like an athlete, really be careful what you eat and when you eat it. You know, you don't eat any kind of meal right before you shoot any scene, or at least an important scene. You got to be ready to give 100% in that tiny window during the day, which you have no control over. Like, you'll go in the morning, you're supposed to shoot a scene in the morning, and you have no control. Filmmaking can be so chaotic and takes so much time to set up the camera and the lighting, and you won't work until 5 p.m. And how do you sustain that energy and that the ability to focus and concentrate? So I think all those things that when you're young you think, wow, I'm playing a character as an alcoholic, I'll just drink. It's a really bad idea. Did that answer your question, my friend?
I was kind of worrying, does your approach change for like a smaller, how am I trying to convey this? You've worked on a set like Saving Private Ryan, which is obviously like a big production with all the whatnots that's not on the camera, with so much going on behind the screen and people doing catering. Is that a distraction or a hindrance in any way?
To have
when you approach a role, you're like, oh, this is a big production, I have to be more subdued, or are you like, oh man, this is a small shoot, it's going to be 17 hours, do I really want to do this? Does the size of production change the scope of your, not only pre-production, but like your mindset going into it?
I see what you mean now. I like to think that you know, you got to honor the role if you're on board, if they've got, you know, $2 in the budget versus, you know, 200 million or whatever. It's your job to like really present a character as multidimensional as you can, a character that serves the story, a character that is ensemble strengthening, regardless of, I mean, like I said, I started out in a deeply dark subterranean independent film world where, I mean, Spanking the Monkey, to give you another example, we shot, as I said, for $75,000 and 17-hour days, 6 days a week. And we also shot, we were shooting on film, but we were shooting on short ends. If you've ever heard of that film, old school film, the mag runs 10 minutes, and you know, all the film productions that had big budgets would, you know, they'd shoot 8 minutes and like pull the mag off because they didn't want it to be interrupted in the middle of a take, and they just like throw that aside and sometimes throw it away. But we shot Spanking Monkey entirely on short ends. So virtually every time we did a take, the film would roll out and everyone would have to pause, and while they reload the camera, and you lose momentum, and you know. But anyways, whether you're doing a film like that or something more on the size of Saving Private Ryan, I feel it's your job as an actor to just bring it and not shape-shift how you portray the character or how much effort you put in the character based on, you know, the money and the budget or the size of the crew or does that answer?
I want to close it out. We're at a comic convention. My show is called Comic Book Central. I've got to ask you a comic booky nerdy question as we're closing out on a couple of genre projects. Oh, we've got one more after that. Your time in the Arrowverse. Can you give us a story about your time in the Arrowverse working?
Why don't we take this question?
Grab that one.
Sure. I was just wondering if you could comment on a film that I feel is underrated, not talked about a lot. I think it was unfairly compared to a classic. And you were talking about roles where a character flip-flops through the film. I don't want to give it away, anyone who hasn't seen it, but I'm talking about Solaris and your performance as Snow. I thought that was one of the top supporting performances I've ever seen in a film, so I thought it was superb. And if you could talk about that role and being up in space and trying to convey that when you're actually down on Earth.
Great question. Gosh, that was a remarkable experience. I got to kind of hijack my acting career there as well, and apprentice Stephen. I learned a great deal from him. It was a really, I would say, of course, I'm going to start out violently self-deprecating, but really that's a classic example of like, look at that cast, man. They made me look good, and it was kind of hard not to look pretty damn good when you're surrounded with these these remarkably gifted people, like my friend Viola and George. And but I learned a lot from just observing Soderbergh and how he communicated with his crew and how he delegated things that he should delegate, and rather than try to take everything on and micromanage, I learned a lot about what's really important to focus on and what you don't want to waste your time focusing on in terms while you're putting a film together, and just trusting your department heads and your crew, and yeah, it was it was a really beautiful experience across the board. Really grateful to have found myself stowing away on board. You know what I mean? But thank you for the question, my friend. Do you have any other quick questions?
No, I'm just curious about your time in the Arrowverse as Dr. John Deegan.
What are the questions you have? I had a great time there, but I wasn't really there that much. There were really gifted people on that too. I'm just conscious of not repeating myself here. There's a lot of really, really gifted people putting all that together, and it was an honor to be part of it. But
no, I just wasn't sure if you were a comic booky guy, or if that was part of like the literature that you read growing up as comic books or not. And for Lost, we love the character on Lost, but do you have any questions? I know there was even the producers said that we would set up storylines that we knew were never going to go anywhere, and as you get to the end, there were so many unanswered questions. Did you have any unanswered questions about Lost? That you'd like to have answered if the producers were here?
I would paraphrase it, my friend. I would put it a different way. What they did, I mean, everything about these writers were, I don't need to tell you, just like top flight. They're the masters of this business. We were lucky to get this wonderful stable put together by JJ and the others, these magnificent showrunners that we had. And when they started off writing, it wasn't that they didn't know, they were okay weaving it, kind of like The Stand in the beginning, but they did, I think, quite wisely decide at a certain point that we should figure out where we want to end so we can start moving and figuring out the structure of that. So in the beginning, I think there's a lot of really inspired and unforgettable chaos in the story, and you could just feel this beautiful lateral thinking, this incredibly imaginative writing and storytelling that they were doing, and going in all these different directions with these wonderful characters. So I really admire how they started out so successfully with so much chaos, not knowing it, and then figuring out where they wanted to end up, point B, the arc of that overall story, and moving toward that. So
it's an unbelievable series, and you're unbelievable in it as well. What's next for you? What's coming around the corner? What can we look for?
The only thing I can tell you about is I just shot the sequel to The Black Phone. So I did The Black Phone 2. We shot in Toronto for 5 months, and it was a really wonderful experience. Yet another example of, if you want to be successful in this business, surround yourself with really brilliant people. The actors who play my kids are really, if you've seen it, they're really, really brilliant. And Scott Derrickson is really gifted, and Ethan is extraordinary as well. So they make me look good.
Well, you make a lot of the projects look good as well. Jeremy, we're going to look forward to that and everything else you've got going on. Continued success.
Thanks.
Enjoy Terrificon. Thank you for being here. Give it up, everyone, for Jeremy Davies.